Good morning. Thanks for being here. I'm Zach Rolwing, your music director, and I am joined by Stephen O'Baker, your organist, and we are here for, at least between the two of us, our third presentation. And today's presentation is pretty straightforward. We are going to be sharing our top 10 favorite hymns from our Red ELW. And this was super tough. There are so many great hymns and from so many different traditions that it was really tricky for us to pare this down. We each picked 5, which is even harder, and then between the two of us, we came up with 10, right? And we both sort of confessed to each other that our short lists, like just gut feelings, is about anywhere between 30 and 50 hymns, right? So it's trying to pick 5 was really interesting. So I'll preface by saying this is our top 10 today, right? You know, it could be different tomorrow. And then of course, you know, there are all kinds of different sub-top 10s, you know? I mean, we could do top 10 favorite Christmas and Advent hymns. We could do top 10 Lenten hymns, right? So it just is endless, the variation. So I know we didn't consult on our top 5. We just Stephen went and picked 5, and I picked 5, and then we sort of like revealed them to each other, and it was like, oh, good. Well, and so, you know, and I think we did both kind of a pretty good job of trying to cast a wide net, kind of grab from a number of different traditions and stuff like that. So it's kind of a nice comprehensive top 10 today, I'd say. All right, so today our companion to this top 10 is your Red ELW. So go ahead and grab an ELW because we're going to be flipping pages, we're going to be singing, we're going to be looking through, we're going to be talking. So to start things off, I want us to a little bit of a ELW hymn education. This isn't part of our top 10, but can you go ahead and turn to page 779, hymn 779, you'll recognize it. This is, of course, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. So why are we looking at this? I want to just share the information we get on a page in our hymnal. So obviously we have our hymn name, hymn number, we have the music, of course, but I want to cast your eyes to the bottom of the page. Stephen and I are going to be sharing information about, on the bottom left, we're going to be sharing about the text, right? Who wrote the text? Where did it come from? Who wrote the music? Where did it come from? And also, and I think not everybody knows this because people have come up to me scratching their heads. They're like, what does the bottom right-hand corner mean? So looking at the bottom right-hand corner of your hymnal, you see the word New Britain, and then underneath you see CM. What on earth is that? Well, the New Britain is actually the name of the tune of Amazing Grace. Right? So the name Amazing Grace is the text, right? That's the text, Amazing Grace. But the melody, just the notes, is called New Britain. So somebody wrote that tune, and then somebody else put the words on top of that tune. And then underneath of that CM, that stands for common meter. And you'll see on the opposite page, right, the Lord's my shepherd, you'll see underneath, you'll see 868686. So those numbers or those letters refer to the metrical setting of the words. So if you look at hymn 778, the tune name is Brother James's Air. That's the name of the tune. And then the metrical setting is 868686. And those numbers refer to the syllables, the number of syllables in each of the phrases, right? So the cool thing about this is if a melody has the same number of syllables as a different hymn, you can put the same words on top of a different hymn. So you'll see this, you know, and we'll talk about, oh, this hymn tune has this words here and these words here, right? So this is how you know, hymn writers and hymn composers kind of share words or share music, right? So that's what that means. So when somebody says, oh, I love New Britain, you can be like, what? What is New Britain? Well, New Britain is the melody of Amazing Grace. All right, so let's hop in. I feel like we should have prepared like a drum roll for each of our revealings. Right, so this is number 10. This is the first one of my top 5. Lord, whose love and humble service, number 712. Go ahead and turn to 712. So this text, was written by Albert Bailey. Albert Bailey was an Englishman, and in 1961, the Hymn Society of America sent a call out to hymn writers saying, we would like original hymns exploring themes of social welfare. And Albert Bailey responded with his submission, Lord, whose love and humble service. Now, he just submitted the words, right? That was his submission. And the Hymn Society loved it so much, it served as the main theme of their annual convention in 1961. And the reason I love this hymn is we see Christ as servant, right? I love this text about humble service. I often have sung this on Maundy Thursday in congregations where we get this image of Christ kneeling before his friends, washing their feet, and I just love that humble image of Christ. The tune, and again, if you look at the bottom right hand, the tune is a very well-known hymn tune, Beach Spring. Beach Spring is part of the famous Sacred Harp collection. This was published by composer and collector J.L. White in like the 1840s, I believe, 1844. And the Sacred Harp is a seminal collection in the history of shape note singing. This is a very American tradition. It started in New England in the late 18th century and then continued in the American South in the 19th century. And this is where, and maybe you've seen old hymnals with this, where you open it up and like the note heads are different shapes, right? And this was a way of sort of sight reading for congregations, that a congregation trained in shape note singing would know, oh, this is how I sing this note, and it has to do with like do, re, mi, fa, so, right? The solfege, it's related to that. Anyway, so this tune comes from that tradition. And the reason I love this is not only the text and the really well-known tune, but I kind of enjoy what American culture has done for hymnody. It's just really fascinating how this genre transcends countries, and every culture sort of gets to have their little hand at hymn traditions. So let's go ahead and sing the first verse of Lord, whose love and humble service. Lovely. All right, Stephen's first hymn.
Like Zach said, it's hard to choose. My 50th favorite ice cream flavor is not an ice cream flavor I dislike. So don't take the order of these to mean too much about what my preference is. I like a lot of hymns. My number 5 is one that I've talked about before in these sessions. It's Built on a Rock. It's ELW 652. And, I'm just going to admit that as an organist, there's a lot of hymns that I love because of the melody and the harmony, and I don't pay any attention to the text. And this is one that I really love the text and the harmony and how they fit together. And specifically, there's this one feature in this particular harmonization of this tune, which is that the composer, the arranger of this hymn, employs a type of chord structure in music theory that we talk about as having a kind of an unstable structure. And of course, the text is about the stability, the foundation of, building our lives and building the church on the rock of Jesus. So could I ask you, Zach, could you just play the bass line, maybe in octaves, and could we just sing the bass part so you hear how weird this bass part is? I don't have a hymnal with me, but... From the beginning. Build. All right, ready? Thank you. Now, as a bass singer, when I get to sing with choirs, I usually sing the bass part. Bass parts are not usually that interesting. And in this hymn, that line is actually a little bit more interesting than the melody of the hymn. And, there's no reason that this hymn had to be written with a bass line that interesting. So now that you have that in your ear, let's try singing verse 1 again. And listen for that bass part and how churning and unstable it makes this hymn feel. Thank you. And there you have it. Sometimes my favorite hymns are not because of the text or the melody, it's just because of what the bass line is doing or some inner voice that I'm paying attention to on the organ. And anyway, this is a cool one for sure. Thank you.
All right, number 8 is This Is My Song. So I love this hymn because in college I fell in love with the music of Jean Sibelius. Jean Sibelius is a Finnish composer. I love his music. It's understated, it's subtle, but it's deeply powerful and empathetic. I always think it's very, obviously Sibelius is from Finland, and his music somehow just conveys the Scandinavian spirit, right? So it's behind the cold exterior of the Scandinavians is a very deep-feeling person, right? I feel like Jean Sibelius' music is just so Scandinavian, whatever that means. And so this tune, Finlandia, is a very famous tune by Sibelius. It's from a symphonic tone poem, and it was written during a time when Finland was working towards independence from Russia. This is the early 20th century. And the title served as a subtle protest and would often have to be performed under alternative titles when Russian censorship was particularly harsh. Finlandia was just this idea of Finland as a country was just a little subversive. So it's a wonderful tune by a composer I love very much. And then in 1934, this public school teacher from Hawaii named Lloyd Stone wrote and published the first two verses of This Is My Song. It's a wonderfully patriotic text, but also is about the solidarity between all nations of earth, and a wonderful, beautiful sentiment. And then a few years later, there was a third verse added by Georgia Harkness, who was a Methodist theologian, and she wrote the third verse in response to the Methodist Church. They're like, we love this hymn, but we would like a verse that is distinctly religious. So Georgia Harkness wrote a distinctly religious verse. So now this is just part of our now hymnal tradition. So let's go ahead and sing the first verse of 887, This Is My Song. Lovely. Thank you.
My next favorite hymn, this I guess is my fourth favorite. This is one that I really like the text a lot, but I especially love the story of the melody. And there's some fun trivia about this text. This is All My Hope on God Is Founded. It's ELW 757. And the text of this hymn is actually much older than the tune. The text is by a famous Lutheran hymn writer named Joachim Neander. And here's the fun trivia. Neander was celebrated as a poet and a hymn writer, so much so that they named a valley in Germany after him, the Neander Valley. And in the early 1800s, they discovered a fossilized skull of a hominid in Neander Valley that they named Neanderthal. So Neanderthal is named for the hymn writer Joachim Neander, who wrote this text, and I think he might have also written the text for the last hymn we sang today. I could be wrong about that. I think maybe, yeah, check me on that. I'm probably wrong. Anyway, but there's a beautiful story behind this tune. So in the tradition of Anglican hymns, and we have several beautiful Anglican hymns from the 20th century, so they're not that old, but they're in a very traditional style. And there was a famous composer in the early 20th century named Herbert Howells, who wrote a lot of beautiful Anglican hymns. And tragically, he had a son who died of bacterial meningitis at the age of 9. And the story, as it was relayed to me by one of my organ professors, was that after his son died, he was very depressed, and he wasn't doing much with music. And his younger daughter, who was only 6 or 7 at the time, said, "You know, Papa, are you sad about Michael? Why don't you write music about your sadness? Why don't you write a song about it?" And so he took this very old hymn text and wrote a new tune to it and named the tune for his son, Michael.
Terrific. Number 6. In the Bleak Midwinter. All right, so I feel like I had to, again, it's a slippery slope. Once you start getting into Advent and Christmas tunes, it's like, gosh, what do you pick? But I've always been attracted to In the Bleak Midwinter. So a little bit about this. The tune was written by Gustav Holst, right, the famous composer of The Planets, around 1904 and 1905, and he was asked to provide some hymn tunes on behalf of his friend and fellow composer, perhaps more famous composer, Ralph Vaughan Williams, who was at the time editor of the English hymnal. If you know anything about Ralph Vaughan Williams, he's a towering figure in English music and both secular and sacred music. So Holst submitted a tune for this hymnal. The tune was named after an English village Holst was living in at the time, Cranham, I think, yes. So the text, and another great feature of this text is it comes from the great romantic poet Christina Rossetti, who wrote wonderful poetry in the 1800s, largely secular, but some sacred stuff as well. And it's sort of a favorite. She's a favorite poet of musicians. Her sort of poetry became well known sort of after her life, and in the 20th century, a lot of composers and songwriters used her wonderful text. It's just great for music writing. And so this text was written in the 1870s as its own piece of poetry, but it was published posthumously in 1904. So it was brand new when Holst found it. And I've always loved this carol because it always sticks out as a bit of an oddity. The title alone, In the Bleak Midwinter, you're like, oh man, what is that about? And so this is often called the most dreary of the well-known Christmas carols. And it is an oddity because the tune is not particularly uplifting, and the text is a little bit confusing, right? We've got this image of snow, right, in the bleak midwinter, snow on snow on snow, and then we pivot to Palestine, right, to the desert where Christ is born. So we get this overlapping image of Christmas, how, we in the Western world see Christmas as a cold season, a dark, cold season, but then the first Christmas actually took place in the desert, right? So it's this wonderful juxtaposition of images, which, some people could call critical, and I just think is just a beautiful illustration. So together, this tune and the text create this really sentimental and, I think, endearing vision of Christ's birth. So let's sing the first verse. Let's sing 2 verses of In the Bleak Midwinter.
Water
then really the third verse is kind of the whole crux of it. What can I give him, poor as I am? If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what I can, I give him, give my heart, right? So however bleak it is, there is a really redeeming quality about it. I think it's just fascinating. Thank you.
I double-checked, and I was right. The last hymn, the last hymn we sang today was one of two famous texts by Joachim Neander. For my third favorite hymn, I chose "In Thee Is Gladness," ELW 867. This is, I think of it as like a wonderful traditional Lutheran hymn. And like a lot of traditional Lutheran hymns, it was originally a secular Italian dance song that was then later adapted into a hymn. But I think the real reason that this is my favorite, because I have a lot of favorite Lutheran hymns, the real reason I love this is because J.S. Bach wrote a wonderful organ arrangement of this hymn in his Orgelbuchlein that I just think emphasizes all of the innate energy and rhythmic vitality of this tune. And so when I sing this tune, sometimes I hear those kind of rhythmic impetus from the Bach while we're singing it. I feel it in my bones. So let's sing through verse 1 of 867. That's kind of a high one, too, which is another reason I like it. You all sing so beautifully.
All right, we're down to number 4. So, in a similar way, I couldn't in good conscience complete, my list without including a favorite hymn from the Lutheran chorale tradition, similar to "In Thee Is Gladness." And this is an interesting counterpoint. So, obviously, Stephen's German tune was very buoyant and happy, and mine not so much. Right, so this, of course, is "O Sacred Head Now Wounded." The text, of course, is about the Passion, and I think the Passion is always a really tough subject to capture, both the horrible violence of that moment, but then, of course, as we know, the broader understanding that this was just a beautiful sacrifice and an image of profound love that Christ has for humanity. And the tune is from Hans Leo Hassler, another huge composer in the early history of Lutheran music and German music in the Renaissance. And of course, Bach, we know this tune through Bach's arrangement. So Bach took this arrangement and he perfectly captures, I think, this contradiction of the violence and the beauty of this Passion moment. So let's go ahead and sing the first verse of "O Sacred Head Now Wounded" and feel the angst, the subtle dissonance, and the beautiful release that we feel throughout this hymn. This is "O Sacred Head Now Wounded," 351. Thank you.
All right, my second favorite hymn, and for a long time I would have said this is my favorite hymn, is I Heard the Voice of Jesus Say, ELW 332. I hope 332 is the right one. Yeah, that's the third mode melody one. This hymn text is in our hymnal twice to two different melodies. And this is one of the hymns that I really love the tune. I don't really care about the text. I think it's a nice text, but honestly, this text, the text is not as old as the tune. In this case, the text is actually newer. It's by Horatius Bonar, and I think that this text actually, I prefer it a little bit with the alternative tune. I heard the voice of Jesus say, "Come unto me and rest." But this tune is not that tune. This tune is Thomas Tallis's third mode melody. It is a Renaissance tune, really. But the reason that I love this hymn is because in the early 20th century, an English composer named Ralph Vaughan Williams wrote a piece for a triple string orchestra. He graduated a string orchestra like an organ and had a big orchestra in the back, a chamber orchestra in the middle, and then a string quartet in the front, kind of like the different sections of the organ. And he wrote a piece called Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Tallis that is based on this hymn tune. And I cannot think of my favorite hymn. I really would prefer to think of like 50 favorite hymns, but I do have a favorite piece of music. And my favorite piece of music is the Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Tallis by Ralph Vaughan Williams, which is based on this hymn tune.
All right, we're getting down to it. What do you think number 2 is going to be? All right, number 2. This is, "O God Beyond All Praising." So similar to Stephen's love of the tune from I Heard the Voice of Jesus Say, and I will say I got really lucky because I Heard the Voice of Jesus Say, the one we just sang, was probably a contender for my top 5. So I kind of got a freebie because Stephen picked it for me. So we both love that Thomas Tallis, just a haunting melody. And Stephen's absolutely right. Oh, I probably put the hymn number for the other text, right? Yeah. So, guys, go ahead. What is "Oh God Beyond All Praising"? We want to do it. 880. So we'll talk about that discrepancy between page numbers there for just a sec. But Yeah, so a takeaway from that Thomas Tallis is go ahead and you should find that Fantasy on a Theme by Thomas Tallis by Ray Vaughan Williams. It's a stirring piece of music, and you may have heard it before. It kind of shows up every once in a while. All right, so, Oh God Beyond All Praising, 880. This is another Holst tune taken from the Jupiter movement of the planets, right? I think you guys know this. The planets were written in 1918, and then a few years later, in 1921, Gustav Holst, he extracted that tune and then set it to the poem, I Vow to Thee My Country, which subsequently became a huge hit in the United Kingdom, a beloved patriotic song for the United Kingdom. I mean, almost like national anthem status. They love it. I believe that tune was played at Princess Diana's wedding and then subsequently played at her funeral. So it's played in sort of British ceremonial events, just consistently. But then in 1982, there was a very well-known hymn writer, Michael Perry, who was asked to write new words for a worship setting. And thus we get Oh God Beyond All Praising was the first distinctly sacred text, well-known sacred text published for that tune. And, it should be known that, hymn organists and choir directors throw the word Thaxt around a lot, and that's the name of the tune. If you looked in the bottom right-hand corner, it's Thaxt. Was named after the village that Holst was living in at the time that he, or at one time he lived in that village, and so gave that tune name to this. So whether you know it by Oh God Beyond All Praising, we also have another setting in our hymnal, Let Streams of Living Justice, which is also a wonderful text setting. So, which is why that page number was up there. I was debating whether to label this as Let Streams of Living Justice or God Beyond All Praising, which really, I love that Thaxt tune. It's so wonderful. So the Let Streams of Living Justice text was written in 1989 by a Canadian hymn writer, William Whitla, and he penned this text to this tune specifically in response to the Tiananmen Square massacre and also the Mothers of Plaza de Mayo protests in Argentina, if you know anything about that. So whether you're singing a song of praise and thanksgiving, Oh God Beyond All Praising, or an anthem about justice and peace, Let Streams of Living Justice, this Thaxt tune, which has got to be just like one of the best melodies written in modern Western music, just so stirring. So let's go ahead and sing. I have you open to 880. Let's sing the first verse of 880, Oh God Beyond All Praising. Thank you.
All right, and my number one hymn, I cheated. This hymn isn't actually an ELW, but this is a hymn that we sing in church, or we hear sung in church regularly, and it's a hymn that I love entirely for the text. In fact, I can't even recall the whole melody because it's a chant. This is the Easter proclamation that Zach and Susan Enan have sung, and Dave Johnson used to sing at the Easter Vigil service. This hymn, I just love the text so much. It tells the kind of the fundamental Christian story, and actually the first time I heard this hymn sung was here at Faith. I had been aware of this hymn before, but I'd never been at a church that did an Easter Vigil service. And I was telling one of my best friends from music school, who's now a choir teacher and a choir director down in Missouri, about this hymn and how cool it was. And he said, yeah, actually, the first time I heard that hymn, I was visiting a friend's church, and that hymn, just that text, hearing it, kind of inspired me to rekindle my Roman Catholic faith. I started going to church again. That's what made me decide I want to be a choir director and go to music school. So this is a really powerful hymn. Unfortunately, I can't tell you a page to open to in ELW to find it, but Zach did very kindly obtain the copy that has it in it that he uses when he sings it at the Easter Vigil. And so he's going to sing just a little excerpt of it. But if you are someone who comes to one of the Sunday morning Easter services, I encourage you at least once. And I should also say, like, I have nothing to do with planning the worship. It's up to the pastors and Zach. So, like, I don't want to promise that that this is going to be sung at the Easter Vigil, but I'm assuming that we continue this tradition. I would encourage you to come to the Easter Vigil and hear this whole thing someday.
All right, I'm just going to sing some of this. I didn't practice this, so I'll do my best to sight read this chant. But as per Stephen's love of this, I'll try to just really bring out the text, this really wonderful text. So listen in on that. Rejoice now, all heavenly powers, sing choirs of angels, exalt all creation around God's throne. Jesus Christ is risen. Celebrate the divine mysteries with exultation, and for so great a victory, sound the trumpet of salvation. Rejoice, O earth, in shining splendor, radiant in the brightness of your King. Christ has conquered, glory fills you, darkness vanishes forever. Rejoice, O holy church, exult in glory. Risen Savior shines upon you. Let this place resound with joy, echoing the mighty song of all God's people. And it continues. So that was our top 10 today of favorite hymns and hymn-adjacent music. So thank you so much. I look forward to maybe another top 10 someday. But in your own time, do your own thinking about, as maybe just a spiritual exercise for many of you who love music is, gosh, what would your top 10 hymns look like? And maybe ponder why. So yeah, I challenge you to do that. Or top 5. I guess Stephen and I only picked 5, right? So there you go. That's a much more manageable piece of homework. So just 5 hymns that mean something to you and why. All right, thank you for coming.